Hello, I'm Buffy Bliss, your orgasmic housewife, and I'm going to be talking today about a subject that means a lot to me. It's something that I've always been aware of, but have definitely had to really make a choice to grow in as I got older and as I ran into troubles in my marriage. It was something that I thought that I had kind of a hold on, that I was pretty good at, considering my kind of rough childhood and background and how far I had come in life as far as being successful and making money and really even doing better than my parents in a lot of ways. I thought I had really made it. And this subject today is going to be on emotional intelligence. So it's been said that a lot of times we hear this all the time: men are kind of not as mature and women are more mature. And sometimes that's true, and sometimes it's not true. So women can be more mature at a younger age due to our hormones coming online, going into being able to make babies much earlier, and really being more interested in connection in general and having more of a bent toward communication and connection, which gives us just a little bit more focus toward what's going on with other people's emotions in order to get along and to keep that connection. Sometimes we think that that means that we have a high emotional intelligence, but that's not necessarily the case. Now, our emotional intelligence is something that it's not like your IQ, it's not something you're born with. Emotional intelligence is something that you can grow, it's something that you can work on by, there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. So, I work primarily with women that are having trouble in their marriage. And often what I find is that I run into a woman who, no matter what age she's at, she could have been married for a year, 3 years, 5 years, 20 years, and 30 years. Often what I see is that there is a lower emotional intelligence. And all I mean, it doesn't mean they're stupid. What I mean is that they have been busy in the hustle of life, too busy to work intrinsically, too busy to kind of look inside at what is really going on with them at a much deeper level. So they may have grown in emotional intelligence as wives to a certain extent, and then kind of leveled out and not been able to find the right information to get them to the next level. It's not generally because a wife hasn't tried. More than likely, she has. Sometimes, even going through counseling, we can stay stunted at a certain level, and that's dependent upon many different things. So, if we want to look at our marriage from the point of view of where is our power in the situation, what can we do? Now, this is in circumstances where we're not being physically harmed, where there's not strong addictions in the relationship, and there's not infidelity. So, when we're talking about just regular kind of problems, communication breakdowns, or problems where there's maybe issues in intimacy or connection, these kinds of things. Maybe it's just not being able to get what you want or what you desire. These are very normal problems, and this is what I'm talking about. Just these normal problems can be so triggering to something very deep within a woman that when she hasn't noticed or become aware of, number one, what her triggers are, and number two, why they are there. And this is what I mean by growing your emotional intelligence. So, the number one way that we can start to grow our emotional intelligence is simply by being aware, being reflective of our emotions. So, noticing your thoughts, noticing your feelings and paying attention to what those things are. Oftentimes, I'm sending women a feelings list simply because there are only 3 words that most people, honestly, are able to use to describe how they feel. And well, 3 categories. And generally, I tend to hear 3 words: fear, afraid, sad, and angry. Now, if you were to actually have a list of feelings, and this is something you can simply Google, you just write feelings list, and you can find a list of so many words underneath the word fear. Sometimes you might see a word like apprehensive or anxious, or I can't even think of all the words. There's so many words that are descriptive of the word fear, but they break down more specifically. It's kind of going deeper into what the feeling is. It's not necessary. We're not talking about getting into perfectionism here, but a feelings list is very, very helpful if you're angry. You may feel more put off, or you might have felt let down. That could be under angry, or it could be under sad. Disappointed could be under sad. Hurt could be under sad. So when we're communicating with another person about how we feel, these little intricate differences in each word, they do mean something. They say something different about how you're feeling. So just becoming aware of how you feel in each moment raises your emotional intelligence. And then being able to communicate that is another level of raising your emotional intelligence. So the next one is going to be to just identify your triggers. So paying attention to situations or people that trigger strong emotional responses in you and explore why the triggers exist. So let's just say, for example, I have had a rough relationship with a mother and didn't have a father around. So there's a lot of reasons why I may have triggers in my marriage. If I did not have a great father figure, oftentimes I marry someone who I think will heal parts of that relationship that didn't happen. So if I didn't get time or attention or protection from my father, I will expect that from my husband at a much higher level because I have so many wounds on the inside that were never cared for. So many losses. It's like a big, empty, gaping hole where I was left with nothing to really fill and no real understanding of what it's like to have a strong, healthy, masculine figure in my life. So oftentimes, there are things that our husband will say or do, like when they disappoint us. If they do something that feels disappointing, there's a difference between having the feeling of I'm disappointed and having kind of a catastrophic experience where the disappointment feels like the whole relationship is bad and there must be something wrong with him, or maybe there's something wrong with me. And what do I do? Because I shouldn't be, because he loves me, I shouldn't be experiencing this kind of disappointment. And the disappointment grows into a big catastrophic. These kind of become really big feelings. So, one way that you can identify triggers is when you have big, big feelings, big, strong feelings that are hard to control or contain. And you tend to want to just respond in the moment, almost in a way to protect yourself from the hurt that was caused to you. Now, the problem with most conflict in marriages is that we're not just in the moment dealing with the issue, we're dealing with an issue from the past that has never been healed, that's never been dealt with. So we're not just dealing with husband, we're dealing with father and husband, and maybe other people in the past who have disappointed us or let us down, who haven't kept their word or done what they said they were going to do. And sometimes we have stuffed down how we felt about those situations or brought it up with the people, and the person didn't know how to mend the relationship, how to make us feel trusting again or safe again or happy. And so now we're constantly looking for kind of this external help or validation to fill this hole, this wound that was previously there. So, another thing that you can do to kind of raise your emotional intelligence is to actually seek feedback about like how you come across to other people. How do you come across emotionally to others? You can ask friends, you can ask your spouse, you can ask coworkers or colleagues. And when you raise your emotional intelligence, you can take feedback because you're not personalizing it anymore. You're just going to take this in as information. Hey, can I ask you a question? Like, if you were to describe me, how do I come across to people? Or what am I like? Maybe emotionally, how do I come across? How do my emotions come across to you? Maybe when I'm upset, how do I look? How do I seem? So that's another way that you can raise your intelligence. The next is to learn how to self-regulate. So when you can have an experience and you can pause just for a moment, when you can stop yourself from reacting and you can take a breath and notice how you're feeling and maybe not even respond at all. If you can even pause in a moment where there's conflict or someone hurts your feelings or whatever, that means you've raised your emotional intelligence just enough to not instinctively react. So the other one would be to practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is such a wonderful way to grow your emotional intelligence as well as your peace. Practicing mindfulness means being able to just be in the moment right now. So when we are thinking about the past or something that happened in the past, we are not present. And when we're planning for the future, we're not present. One of the things that can help you to grow your emotional intelligence as far as the technique of being mindful is to simply be in your body. If you can notice how your body is feeling right in this moment, just as like your butt is sitting in the chair, if you can notice every time you take a breath or yawn, sometimes even coming into your body and just noticing for a second, you may notice your whole body start to relax. You may notice a yawn, and that is because of your nervous system. Your nervous system is amazing. It naturally is running most things in our lives until we become aware of it and how it works. So this is the master of your how you respond in high conflict or scary situations. Whether you fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, your nervous system is in control. But when you can practice mindfulness and be really present in the moment and just be in your body, then your biology and your natural instincts for survival are not in control, which means you're less of an animal. You're not just responding like an animal anymore. You've grown your emotional intelligence. So, the next one I want to talk about is just developing healthy coping mechanisms. That means finding like constructive ways to manage your stress, like exercise, hobbies, talking to someone that you trust, really allowing yourself to actually have your feelings instead of keeping yourself distracted by work or being busy or even alcohol or some kind of something that you ingest that puts your brain in a different state of mind. So, if you've heard this often, it's very true. You do have to feel to heal. So, when you have triggers, it's not that you are supposed to notice them, be in the present, and then push them down and be positive. It's actually more to notice your feelings and allow your feelings, but also to take personal responsibility for those feelings. Because when we put them on another person, that it's their responsibility for us to change a past trigger, then we're powerless. So as we grow our emotional intelligence, we come into our power. We come into our freedom to choose. Okay. The next one would be cultivating a positive outlook. And I'm very careful with positivity mindsets. Now, I do believe that there is a time and a place for staying positive, and that there is a time and a place for feeling however you feel, feeling sad, feeling hurt, feeling disappointed. Sometimes we may need to feel the hard feelings first. When we allow ourselves to have as much time and space as we need to have those feelings, taking responsibility for them, not asking someone else to fix us, but just allowing the process of healing to happen, from that space can often come more positive thinking, because we've created space by emptying out all of the kind of big, bad, angry, hard feelings. When we empty those out, sometimes through tears, that's an emptying, can be crying, okay, can be journaling, something where we're getting rid of or letting go of something. Then we have space to allow a positive mindset, okay? So just be careful. It can be a bit of a discipline to be positive. And I do believe that there's a time and a space for that. But there are also different ways of being not so emotionally intelligent when we're only choosing to be positive about everything. Being positive about everything does not mean that you have high emotional intelligence. Sometimes it can mean that you're not willing to go deep and to kind of deal with and allow some of the hard feelings to be processed and come through and be let go of. So we're still being run and we're still being controlled by them, but we're kind of masking it all with positivity. The other thing is learning how to reward yourself, how to celebrate your accomplishments, how to celebrate good things when they happen. Really allowing yourself to receive the joy in those moments is another way you can grow your emotional intelligence. Empathy and developing empathy. Yes, some of us just naturally have more empathy than others, and some of us confuse sympathy with empathy. So, active listening is a fantastic way to practice empathy. Sympathy maybe look more like feeling bad for the person and like really making sure, that you're maybe giving advice or helping, being helpful. Whereas empathy is more about just kind of listening, maybe asking questions and trying to understand the person and how they feel, showing interest and being compassionate while you're not trying to fix them. You're just trying to understand where they're coming through. This is what develops empathy and being able to imagine yourself in someone else's shoes, how they might feel. So, this is something that's challenging often for women in marriages where they're struggling. It can be very challenging for women to understand or put themselves in the shoes of a man, which is why in my coaching, I spend a lot of time teaching women about men, how their brains process and function differently. They focus very differently. They're very single focused, whereas women um, are very multi-focused. We have what's called like a diffuse awareness, and that's just due to our brain on estrogen, whereas his brain is on testosterone, and that truly does affect the way that we think and make decisions. So the only way that we can develop more empathy for our husband is by coming to him with more curiosity rather than assuming we know how he thinks and what he feels every single time we're relating to him. So if we're mind reading and if we're using our judgment to decide what he thinks or feels, most of the time we're probably incorrect. It takes curiosity to get to know a man and what he really thinks and what he really feels. It also takes active listening, which means just listening to understand, which will lead to more curiosity and asking questions, instead of listening to determine what it is that you want or what it is that you want to get from the communication. Men will actually open up and talk when they feel safe to talk. When you show compassion and kindness and support, especially when they might be telling you that they're going through something difficult. So, developing compassion is another way to grow your emotional intelligence. So, these are just some areas that you can grow in your emotional intelligence, and that in itself can help in your relationship with your husband. Now, I do think that you can grow your emotional intelligence to the very best that you can and still have a lot of conflict with your husband. And this is due to the fact that we are just at our core extremely different. Our way of thinking, our way of relating, our way of communicating, our motivations are like two completely different worlds. And so every once in a while, you may get a sense that kind of like your worlds come and like collide and they touch on each other, and it feels amazing. And you can kind of like explore each other's worlds, and there's all this intimacy. But most of the time, unless you understand men and understand yourself, truly what it means to be a woman and why you think the way you think, why you want the things that you want, why you tend to believe what you believe about men and yourself and the world, until you kind of have a hold on those things, it's very challenging. That's what makes marriage hard, is the not understanding one another and not really communicating. So my name is Buffy Bliss. I am a relationship coach. I'm also known as the Orgasmic Housewife on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. You are welcome to join my small group. It's for women only. It's called the Orgasmic Housewife School of Bliss. I have a lot of free information there and lessons and videos, lots of content that you can kind of go through to get to know little tidbits about what it is that I coach women on and why it actually is possible for you to have fun, have a sexy time, have a brilliant time in your marriage. Marriage doesn't have to be hard. You have so much power in the situation. When you're with a basically good man, he's not abusing you, He's not an addict. And I mean alcohol and drugs, okay? Almost every person has some kind of addiction, video games, golf, television, food. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about hardcore addictions that are like messing with a person's mental facilities, okay? And also if he's not cheating, if he's not actively cheating. Now, that doesn't mean that maybe your spouse didn't cheat or you cheated. That doesn't mean that the relationship needs to be over. I still work with women who are in that situation. A lot of times people just kind of screw up, and it has to do with the fact that almost none of us know what we're doing when we get into a marriage. It is the bravest thing we can possibly do. We go into something with all of these feelings and all these this beautiful, our bodies are filled with oxytocin when we fall in love, and we make these crazy decisions to connect ourselves with a person for the rest of our lives, having no idea what it means to navigate a marriage for the rest of your life, or how to create one even that is close, connected, fun, sexy, passionate, committed, loyal, strong, safe. Okay. So we go into these things just not knowing. So there's a lot of different ways that the stress of that shows up. Sometimes it happens in infidelity. That doesn't mean that the relationship has to be over. So I work with women in these circumstances as well. And they start seeing their husband turn around, be more interested, apologize even deeper, being more intimate and sharing maybe what it was about the affair that was um, something that fulfilled something for him, okay, or you. So no judgment when it comes to that. But if he's kind of continually cheating on you, or you're continually cheating on your person, that's not my area of expertise. There are coaches that work. And if you are interested in that, you're welcome to message me and I can direct you to coaches that work with people in those situations. But I mostly work with women that are just feeling unloved, unappreciated, ignored, where they're not getting their needs met, they're not getting their desires, and they've tried talking, they've tried asking, they've tried being prettier, they've tried losing weight, they've tried getting him to read a book or go to counseling, do a program, and none of these things tend to work. So I share with women the tips and a very, very different point of view that has more to do around the energy within yourself. So we do a lot more of emotional intelligence growth to a level that you can take with you the rest of your life and continue to grow. So in 3 to 6 months, you'll be growing into a very mature, what I call queen. And a queen inspires a king to rise up. So if you feel like you're living with a son, someone you have to take care of, someone who's irresponsible, someone who just doesn't seem to be stepping up, you may be having a prince on your hands. Or you may have felt like you found a frog and you kissed him and he turned into a prince and you were just like, oh, everything's going to be wonderful. And then one day, he turned back into a frog and you don't know what happened. You may be a frog farmer. And this is very normal. I was also a frog farmer. So I've done everything in the world that was not wrong, but out of my ignorance or lack of knowledge about men and about how to create the kind of marriage I actually wanted, where there was romance and passion and where he planned things and I wasn't doing the heavy lifting in the relationship anymore. I really desired to have a strong mate where I could like relax and like lean back and just be a woman and I could breathe and like enjoy my day and not worry about the family or the providing and worry about everything else, where I could actually spend time just being, just butterflying around, just enjoying my day. So this is what I help women with, is to step into this kind of energy. It's a very mature you. It is you at your most mature without all of these triggers, because we've healed from some of our childhood things. So now there's a new us minus these childhood triggers. And we can step into being this very beautiful, regal, graceful, and wise woman. And this naturally inspires the wise man in your man. Most of the time, not always, because we just don't have control over another person. But if he's basically a good man, he is inspired by you, and you actually set the tone and the vibe of the entire relationship. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody gonna be happy. And that is actually what I've found to be true. The question is, how do you get happy when you are struggling with your husband? So if you're interested in learning more about this, go to orgasmichousewife.com today. Check out my free mini training. It is about 20 minutes long. Watch it all the way till the end. And I do reveal the secret to creating the marriage that you desire, that feels good to you, that feels loving, where you are receiving your needs, receiving the love, receiving the words, the affection, whatever it is that you desire. Okay. All the way at the end of my training, I do reveal the answer. And if you are interested in maybe doing some one on one coaching with me, apply for my program. And depending on your situation, I will decide whether or not I feel like your particular situation is something I feel equipped to pour into your life, where I know that we can shift the dynamic of your marriage and watch your husband start to show up in ways that you never even imagined would happen. And it's not hard work. Ladies, it doesn't have to be hard work at all. So go to orgasmichousewife.com today, watch my training, apply for the program, and then hopefully I'll get to meet you soon. Have a good day.